Bun venit la podcastul 𝐸𝐥𝐞 rezidențe artistice în institute de cercetare. Anul acesta cu tema Biophilia, Technophilia. Aici este locul unde arta și știința explorează cele mai inovative perspective ale lumii contemporane. Astăzi avem onoarea să-l avem alături de noi pe Ole Blank, un artist german care în prezent locuiește și lucrează în Hanovra. Ole Blank este renumit pentru felul în care combină pasiunea sa pentru natură cu o viziune artistică profundă și originală. Ole Blank s-a născut în Lübeck, Germania, în anul 1990. A obținut o diplomă în arte frumoase la Universitatea de Arte din Braunschweig, iar lucrările sale au fost prezentate în numeroase expoziții, inclusiv la 𝐼�ြ în anul 2023 la Timișoara. Sunt Mihaela Ghiță, urmează un dialog în limba engleză pe care l-am înregistrat la finalul rezidenței 𝐸𝐥𝐞. Ole, welcome to our podcast.
Hello.
I love talking with creative people, with artists like you, and I'm especially curious about the mechanism of creation. Sometimes I find this mechanism is native, other times I realize the environment in which the artist develops stimulates the creativity, or sometimes certain triggers spark creativity. What is the trigger for you?
Thinking about my artworks, I think they most of the time derive from my everyday life or from experience that I make or from things that happen to me or things that I observe during my path or during my way of moving in this world. And what triggers me, it's mostly observations or finding thought represented in an object or in a process that I find or that I observe. Most of the time it's a multi-layered process, kind of books that I read, with music that I listen to, with places that I visit, and sometimes there are these moments in time when these things overlap in a way, and I find these moments, a very weird word, but it's this moment of inspiration, I think.
Could you be more specific?
I can recall one artwork which I have exhibited a couple of times. It's an installation that contains a big tree, which is highly modified by myself in terms of adding a mechanical system to the entire tree. It's a tree which got cut into hundreds of pieces and then got reassembled like a necklace. So the whole tree becomes super flexible, and it's a mixture of a tree and a machine, so to say. This is a piece that kind of co-appeared during a period in my life when I was on a residency during the first COVID year, when the world shut down, and there were a lot of time for walks and for being in solitude, so to say, and especially for me because I was living in a small town in Germany, in the western part of Germany, which is the most industrial part we have there. And it's also the part where the coal mining happens, for example. And I visited these landscapes many times, which is a landscape that is highly transformed into a big machine that is made for taking the material or the coal out of the ground. There are systems that try to take the water from the land, so the excavators can dig themselves deep into the landscape or the topography, and you see many pipes and cables and chimneys with smoke, and these treadmills that are transporting the materials that they take out of the ground there. And in the middle of that you find very special place that was on the news back then, a lot on the news back then. It's a place of resistance, which is a tiny forest. It's just a small part of a bigger forest that's already cut down and digged out of the soil by the excavators. But this little forest that still remains is called the Hambacher Forst, and this forest, it's a forest of resistance, so to say. It has inhabitants, like activists that are living in tree houses there for a long period of time now already, and also constantly. And during my time there, I did a lot of walks in this area. I visited the people in the forest, and I kind of took the environment in, so to say. And what I also did was I took a little branch to my studio from this place, just as a little mark or a reminder, or a note, so to say. And I got really inspired by this type of landscape, which was 50% a machine and 50% a landscape, and really transformed by the human will to excavate, take the soil out of the ground, or to terraform the whole area. And I wanted to turn it into something, and I thought about working with a tree, which kind of came from this place I visited, and intermingled with this very highly technological part of the planet.
Do you have a main message you want to convey through your art?
I think I'm mostly interested in images, or in the image itself. I think my works are trying to capture a kind of moment of poetry that can speak about also the ecological, the political, and the social all at once. But it's not that I want to deliver like an activist message or something. It's more like finding a language that steps a bit beside the language that we have, and to talk about the environment and our way to be in the environment and to be intermingled with the environment through objects, installations, sculptures, and sound pieces I do.
I want to speak now about you and your start in art. What inspired you to turn to art, and especially to this fusion between art and science? Was there a specific moment or experience that particularly marked out?
I think since I was a child, I was interested in engineering and science, and this idea of inventing things that make our life more easy. In my child and teen years, I already had something like a studio on the attic of my parents' home, where I was spending a lot of hours sitting there and inventing fictional machines. And I think that was the starting point when I got in touch with all these, with the science, and also already in an artistical way. And this was also caused by, I think, by my parents themselves, because we always had these science magazines flying around our home, and even though I was not able to get the content from the very complex words that were written in these magazines, I was always flipping through them and watching the images and the scientists explaining things, and watching illustrations of the universe, and I think this had a big impact on me.
And it was the same moment for passion for nature?
Yeah, I think so. I grew up in the northern parts of Germany, like close to the sea, and I think in this part of the planet, or in this part of Germany, there was like a special relationship with nature, so to say, because there was always the talk about how much fish the fishermen catch, how the weather will be in the next weeks, and since it's close to the sea, the weather can be really harsh. So in this part of Germany, or at least in this part, or in the society I grew up with, weather was never a small talk. Weather was always it was kind of a topic, and I also was lucky with my childhood, because I grew up close to a forest that I went to a lot, and I went fishing at the river that was pretty close to my home, and I spent a lot of time in nature, and I have this kind of attachment with it.
In your family was a scientific environment?
Yes, both of my parents are coming from the field of medicine. My dad was a doctor and my mother was a medical assistant, and through that there were always these topics on the table, topics about in a way the nature science, biology, and these things. It were topics. We were talking about things like this, and at the dinner table from time to time.
Did they encourage you for art?
Yeah, I think accidentally they did. I think accidentally, because they were always supporting me with my habit of building things and inventing things, and they were always listening to me and my stories that I brought up with these inventions and little technical devices and objects I made back then, and they were always an open ear for that. And I think through this they accidentally kind of they didn't push it, but they were showing me in a way that it can be something that's important for me. There was an attention for that.
In Romania is a kind of mindset that the artist has a hard life and they have no money and they are in a way unuseful for the society. How is in German?
Oh, that's a difficult question. I think in the German society there is a place for art and there's a place to look at it and to listen to it. But at the same time, now that we are going through big political changes with all these wars appearing and the ecological crisis that we go through, sometimes I have the feeling that even though art right now is very important, people are not having the same attention for it anymore because people are really stressed out in a collective way. But in Germany, in general, there are structures of funding. And there are many institutions that still provide displays for art. I think art is an important part of the society, but there are also probably the same sayings like here in Romania from some sort of people who do not have a big attachment to it and who look from an outside perspective and who kind of rant about it or do jokes about it. I don't know, maybe this was what you were quoting to what happens here. Yeah.
It's important to speak about your education and your professional journey. What role did your studies at University of the Arts in Braunschweig in developing your style and artistic themes? Do you think academic education is necessary? Can you be an artist without a university degree?
Yeah, I think for sure you can be an artist without a university degree, definitely. But what I can say about university is that it's a great hub of knowledge, and it's really hard for you to get close to such a great pool of knowledge, and also to the people who have this knowledge in their head and who can dispense it or pass it on to you later in life. And I think going to university is and really easy access to information. And in my specific case, I think I was a really insecure student, and during art school, I kind of lost myself a little bit. But what always was important to me, or the most important thing, was the Bibliothek. And there I spent many hours with all these books, and I was going through the whole art history and looking carefully at everything. And this is something that I would not miss from art school. These moments of getting up in the morning, going to library and just sit there, have the time to study and to be in touch with the thoughts of art history or the thoughts of specific artists. Yeah, therefore I think art school puts you on a track, or it provides a focus which is probably not so easy to have if you are if you want to do art, but if you don't go to university. I mean, we have many autodidactic artists in the field who made great inventions and also pushed the art history into certain places. But I think that's a more rare case, no?
Why did you said that you feel like an insecure student?
When I was younger, when you study in this environment, whatever you do is being watched. And this was not what I was working before, or that's not what I was working like before. And before art school, I was always working on my own, and I never did it for a reason. I was just doing it for myself. But art school puts you immediately in this stadium where you have to find words, where you have to explain about your things. And there were always some people who were really good at this, and others not. And I think I was living on my own timescale. In a way, it took me a couple of years to understand myself and what I am doing there, and to put it in place in terms of finding my, in relation to art history, for example. And I think I needed my time. Leaving art school gave me a great freedom, actually. When I left art school, I kind of stopped doing whatever I was doing before in art school, or at least most of it. Some things reappeared or resurfaced later. But all of the works that became important for me in my career, I did all of them after the art school. There was not a single work from art school that I kind of took with me until now, or that kind of helped me after my studies, which is an interesting thing. I often think of that.
Is it important for an artist to know himself? Is this a route for creativity, for the ideas, for the concepts?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that you are not afraid of putting yourself out there and exposing yourself with your ideas. And I think sometimes you can see it in art, like when people are afraid or when they want to be loved for their work or the things that they do. And then out of the sudden, you always experience this very fearless art, these very fearless and honest things that shed off all these moments of insecurity. And that's for me, that's great art. Like the art that kind of makes you see that there's somebody really attached to his or her own work and does it for their very own reason and not for the reason to be loved, so to say.
What is the most important exhibition you have participated in? Which one are you most proud of?
Most proud of? That's a good question. Actually, it was a self-organized thing that I did. And that was in a very small town in Germany, in a artist-run space, where I did a big installation with tons and tons of sand. I'm not joking, it was tons of sand. And the work was called Rhetorics of Walking. It was a work that consisted out of the shape of... I made molds, actually, in the shape of concrete copper stones, the one that you find almost everywhere on the planet, that's being used to create sidewalks or to create also urban environments, to create streets and walkways, yeah. And I made them out of sand. It was pure sand. And I placed them in a room like maybe 60, 70 square meters on the floor, like a perfectly shaped surface out of copper stones. And for the exhibition opening, people were invited to just step into the room. And by the end of the day, there was just a beach visible, like the shape got used by the exhibition visitors, and they kind of transformed it. And the pattern that has been there before, like the pattern of the copper stones, got replaced by a new pattern. And in the beginning, it was the feet being the traces. And in the very end of the day, the leftovers of the copper stones, like under the radiators, for example, or in the corners of the room, became the new traces, and the footsteps were the new pattern in a way. There was this interesting transformation, and for me the work was mostly about to show how you change a room, or how you always change a room through your presence, by assembling these architectural samples from public space that are usually not containing any meaning by themselves. They are always meaning what you are using them for, so to say. Mm-hmm. And this exposition was like the first moment when this idea of addressing an experience appeared in my work. And that was one of the most important works I did. And the most important exhibition, maybe in 2020, as a big solo show I had in 𝐼𝒍𝒻 in another residency, or also when I participated at Art Encounters, at an exhibition that was put together by Ciprian Mureșan and Diana Marinko, called At the Verge of the World. That was also a great experience in exhibition making for me, yeah.
I want to speak more about your solo show exhibition. What themes and ideas did you explore in that exhibition?
The exhibition was called Continuum Transfunctioner, which actually derives from, it's a reference from a very silly movie that was a movie that I watched in my teen years. It's called Dude, Where's My Car? It's a very, very silly, almost stupid Hollywood production from back then that when I was a teenager, it was a big comedy movie. And in this movie, there was this object, the Continuum Transfunctioner, and they in the movie they are looking for it all the time. Like it's it's a ridiculous movie about the search for this unknown object. But throughout the entire movie, there's this thing present, this object that nobody knows what it is, but everybody's looking for it. And that's actually a motive that comes from Hitchcock. It's called the MacGuffin, like this figure you have in a narration that kind of draws gravity, and everything is kind of attached to it, the whole narrative, but you don't really know what it is. And this I really like to put it as a name for a show. And in the show, I was dealing a lot with this conflict of the human way of being in the world, or to think of the environment, and then the rhizomatic chaos of the environment itself, like, so to say, the human trait for, or the human way of thinking and belief systems, or putting itself at the center of the world, and then on the other side, the world that's the natural world that's kind of chaotic and rhizomatic. And in this exhibition, I did many pieces. I did 7 new artworks for it, and in the end, the whole exhibition was like an essay. I think it was like an essay in space, like a poem or something. There was different layers. It were 2 stories in the building. And we had the first floor, which was dealing with ideas of infrastructure, of the environment and nature, the technically transformed idea of landscape. The tree that I explained about earlier was also included in the exhibition. And then we had the upper floor, which was entering more a scientific, more a science fiction kind of narrative with future aesthetics, and again with machines and objects that I made that actually had a function, kind of defend yourself from technology. And I showed a video of a performance where I were shooting artificial lightnings, like where I was creating artificial weather events in the sky with a drone I made by myself. Yeah, it was like a great cosm of different ideas reaching out to each other and creating these abstract essay about our way of being in the world, so to say. Yeah.
I ask you again, what are your sources of inspiration when creating a new work? Because now, for Fusion Hour, you are put in such a situation. We have provided you a theme, Biophilia, Technophilia, and facilitated collaboration with researchers from various research institutes for you and other artists. I'd like to talk about the concept of your current work for Biophilia, Technophilia. You could start with the title. Do you have a title for your work?
No, not really. Only a working title. But this I don't want to publish by now. But I will start with 2 things that I did last summer. Last summer, I spent. I didn't go on vacation or anything. I was traveling a lot for work that year, and during the summer, I spent a long period in my town, in Hanover, where I live right now, and I started to learn sailing boats, actually, because there's a little lake in the city where they have a school for doing this, and during the summer, I just stayed in the city, and in the evenings, I went there and I learned how to sail. And it's just a very small piece of water where they have a couple of boats floating on, but you still can sail. They're pretty good. And doing all these hours out on the water, I started to think of the constellation of things that are happening while you're sailing a boat. And there was this very small area of water that was like the place where you can drive a boat or sail a boat. And then you had this technology of the sailboat that's in touch with the weather, so to say, with the gigantic system that happens on a global scale. And even though I was on this very small part of the planet, very defined small part of the planet, like the lake, I was in touch with this gigantic system that really outscaled me physically, and also outscaled the boat and the lake and the city, even the country that I lived in. And that really inspired me. And at the same time, I was reading a book about it's written by Timothy Morton. It's a book called The Hyperobject. And the hyperobject is these things in the world, like, for example, when you say wind, all the wind on the planet. It's an object that you can imagine, but you cannot grasp it because it's too big. You know that it exists, but it's too big. And that was kind of a thought cosmos or a train of thoughts I had in my mind when I went into the winter and going through the winter. And by the end of the year, I started to have a worm box in my place, in my studio. It's like a little container with earthworms and a thin layer of soil where you can throw your trash, like your greens, in. And this I started to do, and I watched them over the month. And whatever you throw, they take it apart. Like if you throw like a salad leaf, for example, it takes them a week, and then it's turned into this very homogeneous black soil, and it's gone. And the only thing that's left is this material. And I had to think of the workforce of these earthworms, and I had to think again about this idea of. I had to think of the entire workforce of the earthworm that's happening on the planet. And a small part of that I had in my room, but it also connected to this global phenomena of little animals turning dead material into fertile new material that's kind of causing the start of new life, so to say. And I was really interested in that, and I observed them, I played a lot with them, I recorded them, I watched them, and all of a sudden because of another project, I was throwing a small piece of ceramic material into the worm pit. And over time I saw that they kind of started to collaborate with me. I was doing sculptures from ceramic in these days, and the little piece I threw in there, they took it apart. It was also gone after a while. And I think this happened almost at the same time, like the fusion air ideas started, and we had the first conversations about it. And when I learned that I can have there's the option to collaborate with the Institute of Agronomy here, I became more and more interested in this idea to take the earthworm collaboration to a bigger scale, and to work with these processes that happen on a global scale, like the weather, for example, or the labor of earthworms, and take it to my artistic project, or using this occasion of Fusion Air and the exhibition in the end to give a stage to the labor of earthworms, which is something that I think is really important to look at.
I know you will start doing some experiments now. Have you thought about how your work will look in autumn?
Yeah, what I was dealing here during my stay in Bucharest was finding out how to create ceramic material that's also nutritious for worms. Like, how can I mix it, or what do I have to mix into it so it becomes food, but also material to do sculptures with, together with the worms, in collaboration with the worms, so to say. Now I gathered, thanks to Anna Bucaro from the Institute of Agronomy, a lot of knowledge about the worms and what they eat, where they live, how they want to live, and what conditions they need. And this I will take to Germany now, where I'm going back soon. And I will start to experiment with this knowledge in my studio. And it's the whole idea is it's dealing with a time-based media, so to say. It's about showing the transformative process of the earthworm labor in collaboration with me as an artist who kind of presents them sculptures, aka food, and over time they will transform it. So for the exhibition in the end here, I could imagine to do two different things. Like, I think it's in the end a decision between one of them, but one thing would be documenting my process in the studio, the process of the worms, and shooting a movie, a film that can be presented here in the end, that documents the life and the process of them in my studio. Or I managed to set up the installation here in Bucharest, which would be even nicer, to let the people here experience it by themselves, to see it themselves, because it would also offer the chance to visit the gallery more often, or a couple of times, and see how it changes over time. I don't have to put the entire process, which will probably take a couple of weeks, into let's say 20 minutes video or something, or 10 minutes video. It would be the thing itself which really interests me, to address this also experience. Like, it's not a thing that you can get at once. It's a thing that has a life by itself, and that you can visit more often, and you won't see the same thing from visit to visit. It would always be a different thing that you see, and that's a very important part of the work, like the ephemerality of the sculptures, and also this idea of having something that is disappearing over time, or changing shape over time, and becoming something new.
Have you collaborated with other scientists in your life? How have this collaboration influenced your work and artistic vision?
I would say I have, yeah, but not in this immediate state that it's that I did here. Here I was speaking to people actually, and people were thinking with me about my ideas and expanded on it. Before, when I say collaboration, it's more like I was using a lot of DIY tutorials, for example, and this to me is also a form of collaboration, so to say. When you get somebody's knowledge through the internet, for example, and you turn it into something new, or you understand it, you learn about it, and then turn it into, or make it blend into your own work. And this is something that's really important in my artistic process, like finding out about processes, about medias, about ideas or ways of producing things, technical things. And this is something that I would also call a little bit a collaboration, so to say. Even though the authors of all these videos, they don't know about it, but I mean, they could probably imagine. But in my last catalog I made, there was on the last page this section where you say thank you to people who helped you, and I put a few YouTubers there because the exhibition would not have been possible without their help.
It is a true collaboration between artists and scientists in these residencies. How did you feel this experience with residency and a real connection between you and scientists?
It was interesting to go to these very sterilized rooms, these very clean environments of the science institutes, and to go there with an artistic idea that in the end the only outcome of it in the end is a piece of art, and it's not something like in the world of science, as far as I know it is very important that you kind of have an idea what the thing that you are trying to investigate or to research is doing in the end. Like why it's like it's always, I think, always a bit preoccupied by this question of what can we use it for, and this is not what art is about. Art is, I think, the exact opposite. It's not for using it for something. It's more for it's art itself. And there are these two realms of thinking, or of strategies of thinking or of working, kind of coming together, which I think opens up a lot for even also for the scientists and also for the artists, like to get in touch with also very professional thinkers that are also having this trait of kind of artistic experimentation or creation, but at this point not for a specific outcome, but I mean also for a specific outcome, but not for scientific invention, but artistic invention. And when I got to the Institute of Agronomy and I was talking about my idea, it was very interesting to see how people started to expand on it. And it almost felt like they were kind of being really attached to it, or kind of really got my idea, and they were happy to think about it together with me. And that was a great experience, and an experience that I could think of focusing on to have it more often in my artistic work in the future. Yeah, to talk more with experts and to let their thinking come into my work, or to collaborate and do something together and be a co-author of something. Yeah, that was really inspiring.
Now we arrive close to the end of our interview, and I want to speak about the role of curator. How does the curator highlight the artist? We can speak about your experience. When does the curator artistry come into play? How a curator help the artist?
As I experienced it before, or the moments that I experienced that I thought were really good, is when you're half done with your work, when you're half done with it, and when you then start to talk about it with also artist friends or curators, there can be these very good moments of being helped, so to say. You have prepared a bit and you show it to somebody, and then somebody all of a sudden can become a co for you, kind of co-developing your idea from the thing that you have already created until a certain state, and that's something that a curator can do. Like he can kind of help or dispense references or also ideas and follow the work even before it's finished. Even though it's a difficult topic, it can cause many conflicts as well. But I think that's a good moment for a curator to come into a process.
For our listeners who are perhaps just starting out in the art world, for young artists, you are a young artist too. What advice would you offer them?
Having an idea is always the greatest moment, and the rest is like materializing it is mostly, or very often it's about creating a witness, so to say, of your idea. But no, I'm also laughing about it now. But for young artists, I think a very important thing is to protect your ideas. Don't try to be loved for what you're doing. Keep it out. Like just keep it out. Protect your ideas from that. Be honest to yourself.
And this is the last question for you. How do you spend your free time when you are not working? Are there other passions or activities that help you maintain your balance and the inspiration?
Oh, it pretty much blurs into each other. Pretty much. It's very hard to separate it from me, actually. But for sure, I used to read a lot, but also for my work. Like most of the things that I read them for my own work. And as I explained earlier today, I used to go sailing a lot in my free time, like in the evenings, whenever there's wind out there. Whenever this global system is nice to me, I take my bike and I go to the lake and take a boat and spend a couple of hours out there. And but it's also affecting my artwork again. And I don't know if I have any hobbies. Like I used to go running, for example, but that's also a way of being in contact with nature, because I always go to the forest for these things. And I think as an artist, it's very hard for me, it's very hard to keep the artistic way of thinking and moving apart from the rest of it. But I'm also keeping it as a challenge to not let it get too far from each other.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sunt Mihaela Ghiță, vă mulțumesc că ați fost alături de noi în acest episod captivant cu Ole Blank. Sperăm că v-ați bucurat de această incursiune în mintea și sufletul unui artist care reușește să aducă natura mai aproape de noi prin limbajul artei sale. Nu uitați să ne urmăriți pentru mai multe episoade inspiratoare unde arta și știința se întâlnesc pentru a crea ceva cu adevărat magic. 𝐎𝒊𝒉𝒂𝒆𝒍𝒂 este un proiect organizat de Asociația 𝐂𝑒 și cofinanțat de Administrația Fondului Cultural Național cu sprijinul Institutului Goethe.